I've got this new thing now where I think every podcast should have a partner platform, because I think it works really well if you've got one area where you sort of put your arms around your community.
You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, founder of Content 10x. And for this episode, I've got a fantastic guest lined up. My guest is Kate Cocker, and the discussion is about how to repurpose content into a thriving community. Now, Kate is an award-winning podcaster, having won a British Podcast Award in 2022 for her daily show, Everyday Positivity. She's also the director of podcast production company Purposeful Pods, where she works with businesses that are purpose-driven and helps them launch and run a podcast. She's also the founder and director of The Presenter Coach, where she coaches people to improve their presentation skills, whether on screen, on air, or on stage. And I know firsthand what a great presenter coach Kate is, because I've worked with her myself. But this conversation is focused on her podcast, Everyday Positivity, and we talk about content and community building. So we discuss why it's valuable to build a community to go alongside your content, how to choose the right platform, and also the repurposing potential and how having a community can result in a never-ending flow of content ideas. It's a fantastic conversation. Let's jump in. Kate Cocker, welcome to the Content 10x podcast.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's so awesome to have you here, Kate. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So to get started, before we kind of jump into the main conversation, could you just share a bit about your career? So in terms of where you started from and how you got to where you are today.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I started... Basically, when I was at university, I wanted to win an Oscar for being a film editor. Applied to the National School of Television and Film after my degree and didn't get in. So I quite enjoyed hanging out with all the radio people at university and ended up working in radio and got a really great first job down in Bristol for what is now Global Radio. And just fell in love with it and loved audio, loved being able to edit audio, started by making jingles, because basically that department looked like they were making film, they looked like they were editing movies, only it was audio, and really just fell in love with it from there. Loved all the communication stuff, loved helping presenters be amazing. Then went from Bristol to Manchester to launch Expo Manchester, worked at Key 103 as well, worked at Six Music, worked with the likes of Guy Garvey and Mick Rock, the photographer, worked with some really awesome music greats. And all the way through, just loved, working in all mindset stuff, really. I got into performance coaching in my first job and loved all of the stuff that we could do with that high performance in that high performance role. As radio presenters, I was supporting people to be high performers. Basically, they had to be on their game every single day, and to do that you have to have a positive mindset and you have to have all that coaching stuff in the background. And I just deployed that all of the time. So set up my own company to manage some talents, then moved to Six Music, then and when I left Key 103, which was the big radio station in Manchester that I was running, I decided to set up the Presenter Coach. And as I was setting up the Presenter Coach, I also thought, gosh, I could really do with a positive mind, positive words in my head. And my husband had just had some relatively good success with his rugby podcast, because he was like first one out the gate to do a rugby podcast in that style. Now they're all over the place. His is like the Egg Chasers rugby podcast. And I thought, I just want some original space. And that's when Everyday Positivity came. And we actually parked it for 6 months. My husband and I sat in the pub and he went, you know what, it's not quite what presenter coaching is about, is it? And I thought, you know what, he's right. So we parked it. And then I was in the Facebook support group, that podcast support group, that's quite a big community now. And someone, Riyadh over at Volley put in a message saying, does anyone have any good short form content? This was about 4 years ago now. And I just sort of put my hand up and went, me. And that's when Everyday Positivity was born. I was going to call it Everyday PMA, but he suggested calling it Everyday Positivity because of search and stuff. And we spent the first few months with Everyday Positivity running as a daily flash briefing. So it was purely on Amazon Echo. And then we opened it up into a podcast. And then 4 years, it's 3.5 years later. It's 4 years in July next year. So yeah, we've just gone past our 3 year. Is that right? I feel like that's right. Maybe in 4 years. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, we've done over 1,500 episodes and we're still going strong. So
that's incredible. Like, that amount of time and a daily podcast as well. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're going to talk about everyday positivity, but when you mentioned in your kind of, whistle stop tour of your career today about the presenter side of things, you are such an awesome presenter coach, and thank you so much for helping me, because as I've just come back from speaking at Content Marketing World, it wouldn't have been, the talk that it was, and I wouldn't have been as confident as I was if it wasn't for your support, Kate. So thank you.
Oh no, you're a good speaker, Amy. You're really good. You make it easy for me because you come with all this amazing content. So it's often just about shaping what you've got into something that just has a bit more impact.
You're so good at that, though. I'll come to you with a talk that I think, no, it's kind of okay, and then I'll leave a session with you thinking, yes, we've actually we've done something to make okay better. So
did you get a big round of applause?
I did. I got a round of applause when I finished the talk, and then even after a brief Q&A, there was another round of applause as well. So I was really happy. So yeah, it was good. Thank you. But so back to Everyday Positivity. So huge congrats on winning the British Podcast Award earlier this year. Absolutely amazing. And very well deserved. Now, you've already mentioned it's a short form. It's daily. So how, for anybody listening not familiar with podcasts, so how short form is it? And, the kind of format of the show, just to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I guess my mission is that you have a voice in your head every single day that reminds you to be kind to yourself. In this world of negativity, it's about tips, stories, funny things that just help you to go, you know what, I've got this today. The idea then is that it's every single day. So I think sometimes the episode will be about a minute. Sometimes it'll be about 4-5 minutes, depending on how how lengthy it will get or how verbose I'm feeling. So on average, about 2 to 3 minutes. It's meant to be a sort of bite-sized nugget. I sort of laugh when people listen to me and binge listen to me, because I always say I'm good in small doses. Why are you binging? And then there's no music. It's just me. It's just my story, my structure. My tip or something that I've picked up, I get ideas from all over the place. I have coaching sessions with clients and my team, and sometimes I go, oh, that's an episode. And so that comes out, or I'll have moments with the kids that I'll just share that, or from my training. A lot of my training goes in my physical training. I love my fitness and the stuff I learn in my workouts, I kind of bring to it as well. So the format it's just me talking. I'll tell the story, we'll edit it and we upload it, and then it goes out every single day. And it's sort of done because it was a flash briefing. Every single day it would disappear. So we do it in mind that tomorrow it may not be there. However, obviously now it's a podcast, you can binge me only in small doses though, please. Thanks.
So are the first episodes, when you initially started as a flash briefing, are the earlier episodes not on Spotify and Apple Podcasts? What point did you?
You know what? I've never been asked that before. No, they won't be.
No,
they won't be. So the first, how many days? First 100 or so probably aren't on there. No.
Yeah.
So I haven't scanned back to look at it. But yeah, we started about 4 months in.
Yeah, and then got a RSS feed and turn it into a podcast. That's cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of the community, now when you and I spoke and we were talking about the podcast award, and I know something we discussed was that a uniqueness and something that you bring with it, this everyday positivity show, is a community with it and helping and working with the community. So firstly, how did you grow the community? What platforms are they on, and how did that come about in terms of building up that community?
So I think I've got this new thing now where I think every podcast should have a partner platform, because I think it works really well if you've got one area where you sort of put your arms around your community. You've got this kind of, I want to say ring fence, but it always seems a bit like I'm trapping them in. That's not what I mean. But this idea that you've got this two-way space. So, you know, with your podcast, you're just putting stuff out there, you're broadcasting. With a Facebook group, which is what I use for Everyday Positivity, you've got an opportunity to have a conversation so they can speak back to you. We started it. It wasn't one of the first things that we did, but we started it. We ran a bit of boosting to get some sponsorship behind the group, sponsored posts, behind the group, so that it got a bit of a boost. But generally, the way I build it is through the listenership. So I can see the difference when I've mentioned the Facebook group on the podcast. I can see people joining, and I see an upturn in the joining. And then so then that space just became really active. So we focused entirely on the Facebook group. I think that the content probably, and obviously being on the Amazon Echo initially as well, that content I think leans slightly older. So I find that a lot of my audience are 50 plus, generally women. And I think that's the place that Facebook groups, that sits right in that demographic now, So that's where the community started. And then we just built from there and just kept on pushing. I tell you what, the thing that made me laugh right at the beginning was, we were so keen on getting reviews, especially on, so if you look up Everyday Positivity on Amazon, I've got an enormous number of reviews. But that's because I used to hammer it. So every single day I'm in your ears and I'm going, leave a review, leave a review, leave a review, to a point where there are some reviews saying all she talks about is getting reviews like that. But it means that message is getting through. And it's the same with the Facebook group. So, there have been periods of time where all I've talked about is the Facebook group. And then it's about adding value in that Facebook group and making sure that they're feeling served in that space as well.
Yeah, in terms of the content that you are creating for the Facebook group, is there any repurposing of episodes? I guess being daily and short, perhaps not like the typical repurposing you'd see from longer form, but is there any of that, or is it usually kind of, more fresh, new content for the community itself?
We have tried an enormous number of things over the years. Because the podcast is daily, that's what I fall back to always.
Yeah.
So I do repurpose content. I'm looking at it more recently because we've just launched on Instagram. And I think that actually is a better place for us to be pushing people directly to the episodes. I don't quite know how to break this all down for you because there's been so many different things. We did try YouTube at one point and it didn't really work. But I think that's probably because we edited the videos slowly. So sometimes they're about a month behind the episodes. And I think we probably gave up on it a bit too soon. I'd like to go back to YouTube actually to see if we can rebuild that audience. But if we're just focusing on the Facebook group, I went to an Amy Woods Content 10X talk right at the beginning of Everyday Positivity's existence. I think we just started the Facebook group. And you gave your lovely Bob.
Yeah.
Is it Bob? Yeah.
Yes. Wait a second. The podcaster. How can I? Barry.
Barry.
All right,
Yeah.
Barry. I nearly forgot his name.
I don't know where Bob came from. But Barry, and you were talking about that idea that actually, yes, I'm there daily on the podcast, but actually, where else am I putting in these touch points? How often else am I serving them? And what I started to do was on a Sunday, I do a journal prompt. I still do it actually. And what I started to, you'd said, put a video into like your Facebook feed or something like that. And I thought, I'll just start doing that. So I think, and that was on stage to everyone. So it wasn't like, you said it was something like if your podcast is going out weekly and then you plot out on a calendar all the different places that it could be. And you were like, there's one video that talks about something on Instagram, maybe. And I went, okay, well, on the journal prompt day, I'll just start filming a video. And I just would do like a little Facebook video. I'd be out on the dog walk and I talk about the journal prompts and put it into the group. And that created that conversation. And that was really good. I look back, actually, I haven't done it for a really long time. And I was looking back the other day and I thought, gosh, those look really good. But I do different things now. So I do a lot of text-based stuff actually in the Facebook group. And it is repurposing the episodes, but it is about being choosy on those episodes because I think every day is too much.
Yeah.
And what I tend to find, because it is a two-way conversation in that group, what I tend to find is that, like today, I've had, what I often get is people saying, oh, I needed that episode today. So that works quite nicely. It's like getting that feedback of going, oh, people have got their little thing to pitch in. I think I did international on the day after the Queen passed away, I had International Teddy Bear Day already lined up and playing out, and it was about like your first teddy bear, and people started posting about their first teddy bear. But I changed it in the middle of the day. I changed it to sort of, you know, represent the fact that the Queen had passed away. But yeah, people started posting pictures of their first teddy bears, and that kind of happens quite instinctively now, because that I try to create a space in that Facebook group that they feel like they can talk to me and to the rest of the group. So that was one way. And then in the pandemic, the other thing we started to do was a monthly hangout. So just did a free, like, it's an hour and a half. We got one on Saturday actually this week, where we just get together. And initially I started doing them like real, like, facilitated group coaching calls. But actually what I got was they just wanted to talk to each other. Like, we just want to talk to each other about the stuff that we're going through. So I just now really just facilitate. Like this week, I think we're going to do overwhelm as a theme. But what will come from that is, like, I leave like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays recording for next week, because of Saturday. I'll get loads of content out of that call, because they'll all come with their ideas about how they deal with overwhelm. And I'll be like, oh, that's a really good one. And then I'll share it with the group, credit them obviously, but then I'll share it with the listeners, and they get a kick because they hear their name on the podcast. So, you know, it is just that constant. I think for me, it's about that constant two-way stream. And I do worry about not posting enough sometimes. And then I have to remind myself, you know, the podcast goes out every day. I'm with them every single day. So it's almost like a different, where some podcasts are releasing once a week, maybe once a month. And so you need that daily contact with your listeners in another way. I'm the other way around. So I don't feel the pressure of posting so much on social media. Although with the Instagram, I'm starting to try some different things with that.
Yeah.
That was a long answer.
No, it was great. It's, as you mentioned right at the start, you know, I guess the thing with podcasts are they are kind of a broadcast and a one-way street, unless you do things like you're doing with regards to, you know, having that community. And so it's really cool that you have the Facebook group, which sounds perfect for the demographic that you mentioned is like the main listeners. And then I was going to ask if you do live streaming, because like the monthly live, you know, just awesome to have that access to you and, you know, break down even more barriers and more transparency and everything like that.
So I did some lives. I have done lives in the past, and they do work. So I've got like nice little exercises and things like that I'll do as lives. And I started doing these hangouts as webinars. So I did like a Zoom webinar, and then I get people up to ask questions.
Yeah.
Now I just do them as Zoom calls. We're just all, there's like 15 or 16 of us, maybe some weeks, some months there can be 40 of us. But if there's usually about a core group that come every month, and we chat, and to the point where we've had, you know, obviously what goes on in the Zoom stays in the Zoom is the rule, I say. But what I find is it's the hive mind is almost more beneficial, because sometimes people come, they've got lots to talk about. And that's really hard. Like, I'm not a therapist. Yeah. I'm a coach. I'm a trained coach, but I'm not a trained therapist. And so sometimes I feel like, oh gosh, they're wanting the answers from me. But actually in that group, what I then find is that I now know them well enough to know who has the experience to be able to help. Yeah. So I'll almost facilitate.
Yeah, it's and like you said, just being able to connect people, like the leader of the community. It's not about solving everyone's problem, but it's being a connector, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you were saying about how you don't have a worry of like constant front of mind, because you are a daily show, so you are constantly front of mind. So quite often when I'm speaking to people and they have like weekly podcasts, or like you said, even like every 2 weeks or monthly, you know, more that challenge is, well, between the episodes, how do I stay front of mind? I think for you, like what kind of jumped out to me is, wow, it's not that, but how do you come up with content every single day? So having a community and everything that you've said about the conversations that you have with people and obviously discussions in the group, is it the community that are really then helping you to almost repurpose the conversations and the issues that feed this constant engine of thoughts and ideas for the episodes?
Yeah, so there are two ways I do it. One is I will every now and then I'll go, well, we've had a bit of a period of it actually, because we want to launch a Patreon. So we're looking to launch a Patreon, but we want to make sure it's right for the community, especially in a time where, you know, everyone's talking about cost of living crisis and you're about to start charging for things. And but we've done a lot of experimenting over the last 4 or 5 months, and a lot of asking. And so sometimes I'll just post in the group, right, how are you feeling? And that will be enough for me to go, okay, this is the kind of current state of mind. This is the sort of content that I can help with. And this is the sort of thing I can help with. And that will make this content really relevant and current. And then the other way that I do it is if I know I'm going to be launching stuff, I'll do a lot of things that mean that they're involved in that launch.
Yeah.
So if I think, right, I want to do a journal, I did a journal journey, for example, and I knew I wanted to do a journal journey I should explain that. So a journal journey was for 30 days, I did 30 journal prompts, and I did it as a private podcast that you paid for,
Right.
As part of the group. And we designed it really specially. So as I said, Everyday Positivity is about 2 minutes, just me talking. But these journal journeys, we designed that I would do the journal prompt and then do 10 minutes of music. So you can literally sit and write during that music. And then at the end, I finish off and say, right, more tomorrow, as it were. And I got them involved in that. So it was really nice to be able to go, right, this is your idea. And by the end of it, it's your idea. This is what you want, and now it's going to be delivered in this way. And that, to me, that's creating the space again for them to feel like it's theirs. And that's the point, really.
Hey, just a little break from this week's episode to let you know about becoming a Content 10x Insider. If you want more content repurposing tips and advice, then why not join hundreds of business owners, marketers, and content creators who get them delivered straight to their inbox once a week by subscribing to the Content 10x newsletter. As well as tips and advice, you get industry updates, inspiring stories, exclusive content, offers, and more. You can subscribe at content10x.com/newsletter, and there's a link in the show notes too. Okay, back to this week's episode.
So, I did something the other day, which I've never done in 4 years, which is I literally asked what emotions people really struggle with. And that Facebook post has got 80 comments on it. And, that it's really informing the content moving forward, because I'm going, right, okay, well, overwhelm has come up about 20 times. So on Saturday, I think I'm going to theme the Everyday Positivity Hangout as overwhelm. I'll have a basic idea of what we can talk about, but people will share how they deal with overwhelm in that group. And then by Thursday, there'll have been 3 episodes on overwhelm or something.
Yeah,
I'll have then repurposed into that, or this is what helps. Even when overwhelm came up, I then did one of my highest listened to episodes, in that we were just looking at the numbers today, is 3 ways to stop overthinking. And that was that came out of that post, because I think someone said something about I overthink. I was like, right, okay, well, here's 3 ways to deal with it. And that's then a podcast episode, and you can see the numbers go up. So it does, the repurpose and the growth continues to happen in both directions.
Yeah, you're just constantly kind of in tune with the audience, aren't you? And like it's helping you to break down those barriers and create the content that they need at the time that they need it as well. It's the timeliness of it all as well. One of the things that jumped out to me when you were saying about the kind of creating content into the Facebook group, and you said that you've tried some kind of written text options and things like that. A thing that jumped out to me was, maybe you're going to tell me you do this, but a weekly email where you do a summary of every episode that week, just like a sort of the Everyday Positivity weekly roundup or Everyday Positivity Insider or something. You get it every Friday or something, or whatever it is, and it has a paragraph on each episode, just like a short written down positivity boost, so that the people who are listening to it and also kind of engaging in the Facebook group. But some people, I think, would love to just email, isn't dead at all. And that's the kind of thing that they would forward on to, in terms of growing the audience too, because it's so easy to hit forward, isn't it? And you could put at the end of the email, if this could improve somebody else life that hit forward now and forward this on to them. And then when it forwards on to them, they're going to read it and then, be more aware of you. Maybe would say about subscribing to the podcast as well. That could be something great, because as you grow in the Patreon as well.
That's so funny, isn't it? Funny so we've one of the repurposes that we did. So last year we did a workbook at Christmas. So it was like a colouring book and loads of different meditations and things in there. It was just a bit of an experiment to see if something like that would be something that they would want. And they do. It was nice. And I've now used them, they're really good little merchandise things. We put a QR code in them. I was like, oh, let's put a QR code in the pod follow.
Yeah, awesome.
That's a great, why aren't we doing that? So we started doing that now. The really funny thing is I really wanted to do the Daily Stoic. I think Ryan Holiday did the Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd really love to take all the episodes, transcribe them and do a 365 kind of themes of the week type of thing. And it's really funny because my mother-in-law is like a writer, and so I got her to go through it all. And she's come back and she's gone, Kate, you basically say the same thing.
No, really?
All the time. And I'm
Funny.
Because she's like, the message is basically the same. So just that's not to say that it is exactly the same episode every day, but in theory, the themes are quite similar. And because it's daily, it's quite disposable. You do. I've never, ever repeated an episode, but I have repeated concepts and I have retold stories over the years. That's like 1,500 plus episodes, right? But I can't believe that in all of that, I've never thought, let's do a weekly roundup on an email. It's so obvious to do. Like, it's so funny, isn't it? That's another Amy Woods classic that's going to build my community.
Yeah, it could even be just like the 7 mantras of this week, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be particularly wordy, does it? But just like,
no, it doesn't.
Like the 7 mantras from this week is, people do just love those blasts, as you know, like of audio, but like just receiving that. I'm not like just one other thing that suddenly popped in my head, but I mean, you could almost have like weekly subscribers or daily where you could, so he said about the daily, but some people could subscribe daily, but it could say, if you don't want daily, then subscribe to my weekly roundup instead. And then, so some people could just get that blast daily, and some people will get the roundup or something. But it's good, isn't it? Because it's brilliant to build like the community that you've been building on Facebook. But people kind of say, oh, but it's building a community on another person's land and things like that. What if Facebook got taken down or something like that? But I think with the content that you have and things like that, you have no worries about that. But unless someone kind of hacked it and started like posting awful things in there or something, which I'm sure will not happen. Won't happen.
No.
But it's a funny one, isn't it? Because the email is the strongest one of directly having like you own it.
And we do have a mailing.
You do have a mailing list,
we do collect.
It just jumped out. But you know what, I'm like I could just sit here and suddenly I'd be like, say you could do this, could do that. But no, to kind of summarize though, it's just it's awesome what you're doing with the podcast, and you've you're coming up with these constant ideas. You've built this community. You've identified the platform that the majority of your community are on. You're like breaking down barriers and providing that access to you and transparency. And then through the community building and the interaction with them, it's helping you to provide like timely, relevant content, continuously to help them. And, and I'm sure there are, lots of different parameters that people look at when they issue great awards like the British Podcast Award. But I think, obviously a big thing must have just been as well, like how much of a community and what you've built around a show. Like some of the most popular and successful shows have really strong communities behind them, don't they? And yours is kind of growing and growing alongside the content and the presentation skills and every other parameter I'm sure that they look at. So it was funny because when I did enter that award, I was really aware of the fact that I was going to be up against because it was daily podcast, and there are some excellent entries in that. The nominations I was up against. In the nominations, they did 10 podcasts, and they're astonishing podcasts. They're all they're quite newsy, quite journalistically sound, highly produced. Yeah. And
I even remember putting in the first paragraph of my award, like in the entry, I was like, I know this isn't a high production value because it's just me talking, but like the impact is huge. And I think, the judges said that the community was the most important part of it. That was what they liked about it, that growth of the community. So, and as I said, like when we won the awards, I'm like, it's their award. Like they're the ones that, okay, this is how I think of them. I love that community so much. I love the listeners. I see them like this one big person, like made up of lots of people.
Mr. Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, a little bit. So, but I see them as this kind of, they're part of me as much as like they're really lovely about the work that I do, and they're always very nice and loving and grateful. But they will never. I don't think they'll know how important they are to me. And like to the point where a year or so ago, we were at it was just at the beginning of the pandemic. Actually, the last thing we did was my husband's grandmother's funeral, and there was a very emotional bit, and I kind of had this weird longing for the group, like in this moment of loss. I was like, I really just want to be part. I want to be in the Facebook group, and I want to be talking to them. So there's a genuine love and affection there. And you know, I've offered coaching sessions and things like that. So I know some of them quite personally as well now. But yeah, it's a lovely connection, but it really does fire and it's the rudder and the engine to the content.
Yeah. And final question is, what plans do you have now for the sort of growth of the show in the community? Have you got any new kind of tricks up your sleeve, or, you know, just any, you mentioned like the Patreon and you've already mentioned quite a few things anyway, but is there anything that you haven't mentioned that you've got planned for the content?
Well, I think we're kind of in motion now. So we're looking at this book. I think we were looking to try and get it out before Christmas, but I have a feeling we'll be into the new year now. The book is going to be, instead of a daily, like 365 pages of daily inspiration just from the last few episodes, or the last year of episodes, it's going to be, I have 7 pillars that make up like the practices that you can put into practice for positivity. So we'll probably design it around that. So that will come out hopefully in the next 6 months. Then obviously the Patreon is like the first sort of dabble into that sort of subscription, if you like, sort of model. So we'll see how that goes. And then it's just trying out growth strategies. So it's about, you know, this partner platform, which for me has always been the Facebook group, is great. But, you know, I think when you go into like, we asked the audience, like, what other platforms are you on? They're on Instagram. So we're going into Instagram, and I get a lot of interaction through Instagram. I've been really surprised by the speed of growth and the interaction I get. Like, people are genuinely, it's like being in the Facebook group, but on Instagram. And then we're looking at TikTok. So it's like, actually TikTok is going, right, can we attract a younger audience? Am I going to be desirable to them? So it's a different audience. Whereas Instagram, I think, is more of a similar audience, but a wider net. So, and the content allows so much better for Instagram. So that's the sort of growth stuff that we're now thinking about, really. And, you know, what Patreon will then bring is, you know, we'll do more journal journeys that you can subscribe to. That's through the Patreon.
Brilliant.
You know, we'll look at maybe doing some more lives and stuff like that. But the hangouts will continue to happen. So
sounds awesome. Yeah. And I think it sounds really good. And what you said about Instagram and TikTok, with the complete sort of like overlap between Instagram Reels and TikTok, and Instagram Reels being where it's at on the platform, seems like such a great idea for you. And whilst you mentioned that kind of younger audience, I actually think that, you know, TikTok has got such a broad audience now. And if you look at like Edison Research and things like that, where they're looking at the numbers, it's grown across every age group, like every single age group. So I think the kind of content that you're doing, like the everyday positivity, building the community, so it'd be a brilliant avenue to explore, like maybe creating, you know, the same thing for Reels and TikTok and seeing how that goes. So yeah, very exciting.
The interesting bit is that you've got this community that I want them to feel like they've invested their time and energy, so they get the special stuff. So it's just kind of managing the types of content that go out. But yeah, it's all about just getting, basically, I want people to have, I think positivity will change the world, right? If you've got a positive mindset, if you wake up in the morning and you're in a good mood, you know your day, your decisions, your life, everything is better. And so really, I just want to spread positivity as best I can and just build that community so that other people can, you know, my positiviteers, if you like, are spreading positivity every single day. So that's the potential behind the growth, really, is just to kind of keep that moving.
Keep that going. Well, Kate, you have made me extremely more positive having this conversation today. And I hope for everyone listening that they are now that bit more positive, having listened to the conversation today, and will go on and listen to Everyday Positivity as well. So
have a look for us.
Yes.
I should end the episode like I end every single episode, which is have a great day, and remember, you have 100% got this.
I love it. Thanks, Kate. Well, in terms of connecting with you, of course, apart from checking out Everyday Positively, listening to the show, is there anywhere else that you specifically would like listeners to go and connect and say hi and let you know that they listen to the show?
Yeah, so let's go for the new Instagram channel. So it's @official Everyday Positivity. So check us out there. And then everything else that I do, you can connect to from there.
Brilliant. Well, we'll obviously share the links to everything in the show notes, of course. So Kate, it's been a very positive experience. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been really great. So thanks, Kate. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that discussion and thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the Content 10x podcast, then why not hit that subscribe button on your podcast listening app of choice so that you can get updated when new episodes are released. And I'd really, really appreciate it if you could leave a review as well. That really makes a difference for the podcast. Also, please do get a copy of my book, Content 10x, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results. It is the ultimate guide to repurposing every type of content, and it's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback and also in audiobook as well. And you can head to content10x.com/book to find all the other places that you can get a copy of my book. And if you would like us to do your content repurposing for you, then we offer a fully end-to-end done for you content repurposing service. This is for podcasters and video content creators. We have our podcast 10x, video 10x, and also our specific LinkedIn 10x service, helping you to become the leading authority in your industry on LinkedIn. You can find out so much more about our services on our website. And also, please do give me a follow on the social media platforms. I share lots and lots of tips and advice on social media about content repurposing. I'm at Content 10x on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you try content10x.com/LinkedIn, you'll find my LinkedIn profile over there as well. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.